Hey, you guys, hope you're well. I just wanted to take this opportunity and let you know about our amazing new business scalability scorecard. So have you ever wondered if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, and you want to grow and scale the business, but not sure how, and you're looking for some advice and you're looking for some strategies about how you could effectively grow and scale your business? Well, this is your opportunity. We have actually created an amazing business scalability scorecard. It'll take you around 7 to 8 minutes. And at the end of that, it will actually create a report of all of the things that you're doing particularly well in and the things that you need to make improvements to your business. And it's a great tool and a great asset for your business. To get free access to that, go to bit.ly/business-scalability-scorecard. Go there, go now. Take care, see you soon.
This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by Productivity Authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game Changers Experience with myself, Adam Strong. And today on the show, we have an amazing lady who I have been super excited, and we're going to be going into something really deep with Zoe Cairns. Zoe is a international social media trainer. She is a TV commentator. She's been on the likes of the BBC. She's been on ITV. By the way, these are TV channels in UK. Just wanted to let you know. She's a social media strategist. She's worked with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. She's been working with the European Commission. She's also done some stuff with NATO. Oh my God, the credibility just oozes. And honestly, I'm just really looking forward to some of our conversations around social media today, because I tell you what, it's an absolute minefield. So Zoe, welcome to the show.
Hey Adam, it's great to be here. I'm super excited to be here today. I couldn't wait to be on the show. I've been listening to some of your other shows. I think one in particular that stuck out was Elliot Kay about being a giraffe, which was brilliant. So yeah, I don't know how I can follow that, but I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure you'll be fine anyway. And I want to give a big shout out to our good buddy, Mr. Ash Lawrence, because Ash is a great buddy of ours, and always keeping it real. So big shout out to you, Ash.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he's great. He's the one that's connected us as well, Adam, as well.
Absolutely, 100%. So listen, I know that you started off, believe it or not, is it the mortgage industry? That's where you started off, right? And you know, I mean, you've made a transition into what you do right now. But
yeah,
what did you like? When did you make that realization or that transition from something which is very different, like mortgage advising or the mortgage industry, which is completely different to social media?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose there's an element of truth, but tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, what happened is back in 2008, my boss said to me, Zoe, you know, the recession's hitting, you know, you need to go and find your own leads, because he used to give us leads within the office and we used to do, you know, networking. And he said, you need to find more of your own leads, because I can't give them to you anymore, because you have to work harder for them. And so I started to do a lot of networking, which absolutely daunted me. The thought of standing up and doing my 60 seconds, I was like, how am I going to do this? But I ended up traveling over to London, Birmingham. There was a big Berkshire event. I was going everywhere networking at property networking events. I even set up my own in Kent called the Kent Property Event, which was brilliant. It really helped the business. But my friend then told me about Facebook. She said, you've got to get on Facebook. There's lots of people on it. And so I went on there and I thought, okay, how do I use this? I didn't have a clue what to do. And I typed into the search bar on Facebook, property investors, just like I would Google. And all of these property investors appeared. And I thought, wow, there's my target audience. And that's where I started. I just joined the group, started to engage. I did get told off for spamming a little bit because I didn't know how to use it. But yeah, that's how I got started.
Wow. So hang on a minute. Right. So were you working for a mortgage like, company as such, and then you were kind of infiltrating social media to do what?
Yeah, so I was working for mortgage brokers in Gravesend, and I was self-employed, although it felt like I was employed. So I was working for them at the time, and then when I started to get into the social media, I ended up going, I thought, right, this is really good. I started to look at Facebook. I was learning from Mike Konings. I was up in London at the internet marketing world. I don't know if you remember that, with Mark
Old
Anastasi,
school,
and
old
I was
school.
doing all. Do you remember that? I was doing all of that stuff, and I thought, "Do you know what? I love this. I actually prefer this to my actual day job." It was just brilliant. And all of these property professionals started saying, "Zoe, could you help me?" And even the estate agents and a couple of lawyers started to say, "Can you help me?" And I just started to help them out. And I thought, "Do you know what? I love this." And that's how I started to really get into it.
Very good. Awesome. Very cool. So, so in the world of social, it's interesting because social media is such a big subject, and I'm sure we could talk about it for many, 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 many hours.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you've worked with corporate companies down to SMEs, down to individuals, such a broad mix of people or whatever it might be. But what would you say from your perspective, though? What would you say that the common mistakes of people using social media? Because I mean, there's so much to choose from these days, isn't there? Back in sort of, 10, 15 years ago, you don't
Yeah.
have near as much choice as you do now. So I'd
Yeah.
just love to kind of touch on some of the common mistakes that maybe some, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective, some of the common mistakes that they make.
Yeah, no, of course. And what I find is, number one, they don't have a strategy. They set out and haven't got a clue what they want to do.
Yeah.
So they start off by going on every social media platform and just posting content that is quite random, that's
Yeah.
not really about their marketing message. And so they then thinly spread themselves across too many platforms. They don't achieve their goals. And then I then hear it doesn't work. It's a big fad. It's a waste of my time. And I just haven't got the time and resources to do it. So first of all, number one is a strategy. They don't know what they want to achieve. Because if they actually defined what they want to achieve and set realistic goals, smart goals, and actually thought about what is my business trying to achieve over the next year, 3 year, 5 years, they could then start using social media to help them achieve those goals. So then once they think about those goals, they then know what platforms and actually what type of content they need to be posting out. So that's one of them, no strategy. The other one, which I'm always quite surprised by, well, actually, yeah, I am, is that they don't understand who their audience are. They don't know who their audience are. And, I completely get this because, back in the day when I was doing mortgages, it would be like, oh, every single person that buys a house needs a mortgage. Where actually I then niched down into buy-to-let investors. So I really niched down into what I was doing. So now, when I hear businesses say it could be any business within a particular area, it's too broad. So knowing your audience is so key, because when you understand who your audience are and you understand their pains and challenges, it's then you can really start to define and be really creative with your content and start making your content more relatable to the audience you're trying to get in front of. So that's another really common thing that I see, is that they don't understand who their audience are.
Mm.
That makes sense.
I was going to say to you, one of the things that I've made actually is I call it social media splurge, like when you social media vomit, right? So you basically like vomit all over everybody, like in a nice way, by the way. I just want to just
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
visualize
yeah.
that. Okay. But it's kind of like this kind of scattergun approach to kind of try to get some engagement and that kind of stuff in desperation of trying to build that business. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, we see it a lot, and they are, because once they know who their audience are, they can then really define their content,
Mm.
which then is not like what you're saying, that where they just splurge it all out. It's about then they can be really defined as to the types of messages they need to be putting out to be relatable, to get that engagement, and then convert those people into customers.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, it's really about being really defined.
Yeah. Good. It's a good tip that. So, one of the things that really drives me insane and and I suppose in a way, it's a bit of a downside to social media, is there's a lot of people out there, especially in this kind of day and age, is that social media can really kind of cause it's a life to be a bit of a mirage. So, and I'll kind of give you some clout on that. What that basically means is, you'll get like even people listening into this podcast right now, right? That basically try to compare themselves to other people that are on social media, and it's not really the true story. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I find this a lot, and I've done this in the past as well. When you get to that point, you might get to a low point, you've had a bad day, start to compare yourself with other people within your industry, and then you think, am I doing this right? You then start holding back in posting out, and a bit of, some people call it imposter syndrome,
Right.
Where they hold back and they don't believe in themselves and that type of stuff. Because sometimes what you do see online, is it the truth? Is what they putting out there the truth, and have they got the facts to back it up? Which is why a lot of people say to me, you've got great credibility, you should shout about it more. And actually, do you know what, I don't need to shout about it as much as I need to, because if you go on my LinkedIn, I've got everything that I claim. I've been on ITV, BBC, NATO. I've got all of the testimonials to really back my facts, which is great. But when you look at some people online, when they're shouting about stuff, how can you then, if people then do that bit of research about you, can that back up that claim? So, if you are being held back because you're looking at what others are doing in your industry and they look better than what you're doing, you just be you. People buy from people. Everyone is different. And you're not going to make everyone happy. And I saw a girl from Clubhouse, Natty, she put out a post, I think it was yesterday, and she said, there could be 5 people in a row. The first person is your person. The other 4 is someone else's people, because, you're not going to make everyone happy. And that's my answer to that. Build your own personal brand. Remember to be authentic, to come across as you, and don't try and be someone you're not, because when people do get you on the phone or face to face, can you still be that person that you say you are online? Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. 100% makes sense. It sounds so simple in a conversation, but in reality, I can tell you now that people will still go back to their old habits, which is just kind of sad, really. Anyway, the other thing, and I suppose from a personal perspective, actually, and we talked about the fact that there is so much social media channels out there. You've got the likes of TikTok, you've got the likes of the traditional route to market, which is Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of that have been around for quite a number of years. How do you when you have conversations with people around how to deal with overwhelm, because of you're kind of a little bit spoilt for choice in a way. How do you deal with overwhelm?
Yeah, and this is a big one. I've got a membership site where I've got a lot of small businesses in there, and every time something new and shiny comes out, it's like, should I be on there? And that's not necessarily the case, because if you understand your strategy and know your audience, when you know your audience, you'll understand what platforms they're on and where they're engaging. So that's one of the most important things when it comes to knowing what platforms you should be engaging on. So therefore, rather than trying to thinly spread yourself across too many, try and be on the ones where your audience are hanging out. Now, when that new platform brings out additional features, let's just take, for example, Instagram bringing out stories and reels, IGTV, my clients are like, well, should I do all of them? And I said, well, do a bit of a survey. Some of them have got some really great community groups. And I say, go into that group and just say to them, are they using reels? And so one of them went in, she goes, I'm going to use reels. She goes, but I haven't got time, but I'm going to do it. And I said, well, ask your community first. Anyway, she's gone into a community, says, does anyone use reels? And people were like, what are reels? Her audience reels. And she was like, actually, now I see what you mean. Why am I going to go and waste time and resources on something where my audience aren't hanging out or don't even know what it is, when I could be spending that time on something else? So it's about really, once you know your audience, you'll know what platforms you should be present on. And a lot of people jump on these new additional features because it's going to increase their audience, and it's going to increase their engagement, but not necessarily with the right audience. And one of those myths I've heard out there is the more followers you've got, the more revenue you make, or the more profits you make.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? It's about how engaged your audience are rather than the amount of followers you've got.
Sure.
And that's my sort of response to that, Adam. But yeah, I think you got to be strategic with it.
I was going to ask you actually, because it's interesting you're bringing this up, because I would have kind of poked you on that anyway. But
Yeah,
I suppose my other thing though, it's it's a fine balance, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll give you an example, right? So if I didn't know you and I came across, say, your, I don't know, Instagram account, right? I'm going to get an impression of you within the first 5 seconds. That's reality. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have, I don't know, 500,000 followers, right? Do you think, and this again, I suppose is very subjective, do you think that as a stranger or a prospect or whatever it is, do you think they're more than likely to follow you or engage with you if you have more followers without compared to someone that doesn't have such a big following? How important is first impressions, and where does the balance come in?
Yeah, see, first impressions are, if you've got more followers, and this is the sort of, what's the right word? It's not mentality, is it? It's the way that everyone's, I don't know what the right word is, Adam. I'm not great with words. I think I told you this earlier, but I'm trying to think of the right word, and you might think of it in a moment. But what happens? The in thing is, the more followers you've got, the more people will follow you. And that first impression is what you're doing, but actually behind it, that person may have bought followers. They could have been doing something else to build those followers. Is that audience the right audience? And therefore, what I say especially brands, I've worked with brands and they're like, we want influencers with the biggest following. And I say that's not always the case, because if you look behind the scenes and you use tools like Hype Auditor or Social Blade that tell you how engaged their audience are, their following might be really high, but their engagement rate may be really low. And what that tells me, it's okay having millions of followers, but if their engagement rate is low, that community will mean nothing to a campaign that you're running. So, first impressions might be, wow, they know what they're doing. They've got a big audience, I should follow them. But have a look at their engagement. Are they getting back to those people? Are all the comments from people going hot, hands up, I like, or, have a look at the engagement they're getting. That's what I would say. So I think, gone are the days where, we used to follow people with, thousands of followers, and people are still doing that. But there's some really great micro influencers out there that are doing amazingly well with a smaller audience and such an engaged community that are getting some amazing results.
Yep. Very good. Love it. Wanted to talk about something which I kind of was going to say. I think that it was on your LinkedIn profile. I think there was an article or something on there, and I wanted to kind of challenge you on.
Yeah.
But it's kind of more, what are the differences between broadcasting and engagement? Like, what's better for you? What's the best way to maximize reach? Should you do one more than the other? I'd be really interested to know more about that. So.
Yeah, no, of course. So there's been a broadcast and there's been an engager. And years ago, when I started out, back in 2007, 2008, social media was all about broadcasting. And I remember Mike Koning saying to me, you've got to be on every single social media site and just put out your posts, because it was about dominating Google back then. Over the years, as the social media platforms have developed and the algorithms have developed as well, now, in order for us to really increase our organic reach, the number of people that we get in front of, we need to make sure that we're not a broadcaster, that we're actually an engager, which means, okay, we're going to put our key posts out there, but we need to engage with an audience. So if you're not engaging with your audience and you're just being a broadcaster, the algorithm says, well, you're just trying to broadcast on my platform. I'm not going to show as many people your post. Whereas if you're an engager and you're making your community feel part of a community, and you're actually getting them to come back, look at the response and engage back with you, you're keeping them longer on the platform, I'm going to show your post to more people. And that's why now it's so much more important to be an engager than just a broadcaster.
Yeah, love it. Very good, very good. And it's just that that's really interesting because, you know, I think there's kind of battle for a lot of listeners in particular that, you know, that broadcast. I mean, there's so many great features now on social media, whether it be polls, whether it be reels that you mentioned, for example. And we'll talk about social media strategy in a minute as well. But I guess my other question for you, Zoe, is, do you think, and this is a really thought-provoking question from my perspective, I mean, as social media has evolved over years, you know, Facebook's been around for donkey's years now, same with Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff like that. Do you think, from your perspective, that social media is fixed?
Fixed in terms of what do you mean?
So and you probably would have seen this, right? You'll get like, I don't know, say a friend or I don't know, one of your prospects or whatever it is, one of your clients, and they turn around and they're like, hey, Zoe, I don't get it right. I put up a post on my social media feed or whatever it might be, okay? But I'm not getting half as much engagement as I used to. Why is that? Why are people not seeing this?
Yeah. And this all comes down to the organic reach and the algorithms. And lots of people say, let's beat the algorithms. You're like, no, you don't want to beat the algorithm. You've got to work with it because you'll never beat the algorithm. Yeah. And so when it comes to people saying it's fixed, you know, 9 times out of 10, when I go and look at their posts and what their activity that they're doing on that social media, because that's the first place I'll start. And when someone says to me, I'm not getting engagement here, I'm not getting this, I'm seeing the same people over and over again. When I go and look at their activity, they've either got posts going through a scheduling tool and never go into the platform. And so they're just looking at feeds through their scheduling tool. The other one is that they don't go and engage. So they definitely don't go and engage with people and spend that time doing that. Yeah. And their content is shocking. Like, you know, it's just all about them. And I know, why would your audience want to actually engage with that type of content? Exactly. And so, like you mentioned, there's so many more engaging tools that the platform want us to use to actually get our community involved, like the polls, the collaboration Q&As in Facebook now, and the lives and the live streaming. There's so many tools that people can use, but what they're doing is they're spending so much time, you know, worrying about what they're going to post about what they think is right, when actually their content isn't relatable to their audience, and they're not using the key post that they need to use to really increase that engagement. So, you know, my advice to people is to really keep up with the trends. And that might sound like a lot, but just keeping in touch with some key people in the industry as to what's new, what's happening, so that actually they can say, right, this month, I'm not going to use, you know, a link here, but I'm going to use a poll and get that engagement going. So when they've got their organic going, it's building up engagement. And then when their paid comes in and they remarket to that audience, they've then got people coming into their funnel.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, actually. And interesting, we're talking about algorithms, right? How do social media algorithms affect the results that you desire or you want? I mean, because we're all now beginning to understand what I think my good friend who's a marketing genius, he talked about the fact that Google last year changed their algorithms 19,000 times. I'm like, how the hell do you keep up with that stuff? Where, you know, I mean, what is your kind of take on this kind of algorithm stuff? Is it, you mentioned about the fact that you shouldn't fight against them, you should work with them, but then how do you know, you know, how can you work with an algorithm when they're changing so consistently all the time? How do you get around it?
So we have lots of test profiles that we have. So we've set up different pages. We've got a snow one. I mean, the snow one's been going crazy the last couple of weeks, but we the algorithm as to what's happening. So, you know, we find with different keywords and different tests that we do. So we keep up with the trends via, you know, having test pages that we test with, that we just see what types of content is working. I have, you know, some great people that I listen to from the States that are always so far ahead, and just keep an eye on what they're doing, and also looking at developer blogs and the platform news, just to see what's going on behind the scenes, to see what's happening with the algorithms as well, just to keep up with that. And then I then relay that to my audience, to keep them up to date.
Very good. Very cool. So I know you mentioned earlier on about social media strategy, right? Which is a real big word. When we think of the word strategy, we think, oh my God, hard work. How can I do social media strategy when I'm kind of so overwhelmed? But let's talk about social media strategy. What is it? What needs to be in a social media strategy in order to make it work? Can you give us a bit of a run through?
Yeah, of course I can. Social media strategy is just like a business plan. If you don't know what you want to achieve in your business, what the vision is, what your goals are, and where you want to go, then, if you didn't have that business strategy, that business plan, then you'd just be going along and taking up different opportunities, probably going down the wrong road, and probably staying quite static, to be fair, picking up the wrong opportunities. It's the same with social media. If you don't know what you want to achieve, then you'll just keep posting out. You'll maybe get the odd result, but it won't accelerate your experience with social media. So social media strategy is just like a business plan. It's about having that vision as to where you want to go, and it really needs to align with your business plan and what you want to achieve. Now, some of the key things in there are goals as to what you want to achieve, keeping that realistic, making sure they're really smart goals. So having those goals are really key. And I would say one of the most important things that determines an awful lot from your strategy plan is knowing your audience. Because when I say to people, right, okay, you've got your goals, you're using all the platforms. I don't know, why you're using all the platforms, because who are your audience? And when they say, well, it could be anyone with a business, and I've mentioned this before, knowing your audience is one of the key elements of your strategy. When you understand them and really brainstorm them, really use relevant tools to find out what platforms they're on. So your audience is going to help you determine, number one, who your audience are, but number two, what platforms you should use, what tools you should use, what influencers you should be engaging with, what your types of content and campaigns should be, which all make up that strategy plan.
Love
Does
it.
that help?
Very good. Absolutely. 100%. Was going to say content, because I think it's interesting for us, like in our business, we create a lot of content. For most people's businesses, especially our listeners, they probably don't create enough content. So I want to kind of talk about content and how to use social media to, I suppose, impact and maximize the content, especially for someone that maybe doesn't create as much content, or they're maybe not what I call recycling the content. You know what I mean? So
Repurposing.
absolutely repurposing the content or whatever it is. What tips do you have for those people that, with regards to creating content and content strategy and how to use social media?
Oh, I love this one. This is my favorite. So how long have I got? A week?
Crack on. Love it.
So I'll give you a couple of steps. Obviously, I can't go into like huge detail on the podcast because I'll be here all day. But so when you're thinking about your content, once you've got your strategy plan, you then think about what your key focuses are. So your goals, your wish list, will actually allow you to define what key services, products, consultations, mentoring, programs that you really want to focus on over the next year. So you take those, and I would do a separate brainstorm for each one. So I sort of like give them a piece of paper. Now, say, for example, it was meditation. One of your things that you really wanted to push was meditation.
Okay.
With meditation, you brainstorm all of the key things that you could talk about around meditation. It could be environment, it could be smells, it could be, music. So you think about all those key things and brainstorm all of those. Then what you do is you put them all into something called, I call them buckets. So you've got, with the meditation, you've got different content buckets for it. So you might have a meditation bucket, you might have a sleep bucket, etc. And you put all of them in. Now, I would then use tools for that topic of meditation and time and environment, and use tools like answerthepublic.com and Pinterest to help you pull out at least 12 to 15 different questions that people might have around meditation and those key topics that you've spoken about. So if you put in meditation into Answer the Public, it'll come up with all the questions that people have got on meditation. I want you to write down 12 to 15 of those questions. Now, each question forms a week. So you've now got 12 to 15 week themes. So if one of them was, what is the best environment for meditation? That's your theme for the week. Now, you could create a real good piece of content for this. It could be a blog, a podcast, or a video, a live video.
Yeah.
So if you create one good piece of content for that, now if you create that, you can then create 10 to 12 posts from that one question and that one big piece of content. So if you've done a podcast and it was what is the best environment for meditation, and you were talking about that in there, you might have 3 key points in there, 5 key points about the best environments. They then become 3 to 5 separate posts. You might have quoted different things in that podcast. You've got 2 separate quotes as well. You can do a little video that might take out. So if you recorded it, you could take a little video clip out of it. You then come up with like 10 to 15 or 10 to 12 posts for throughout that week on that one question from that one piece of content. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
hopefully it did make sense and it wasn't too jumbled up, but in simple form, that's what you can do to create a really good content plan.
Yeah, very good. The other thing I was going to say to you, actually, with someone that's got lots of content, I suppose in someone like myself, we've got like so much content. How do you measure what is working and what is not working? Is there a tool that you use, or is there something that you advise?
Yeah, I mean, we use various tools. If you're looking for something, that's relative, you haven't got a budget for it, the insight tools on the different platforms are great to use about what was the top trending posts, what's your engagement rate, so they're great. Or if you've got a bit of budget, then Sprout Social is a brilliant tool that measures you month from month, and you can create some great reports that email you at a particular time every month as well, so you can actually get it to come to your inbox. Hootsuite's another one. We specifically use Sprout Social or Social Bakers, depending on the client.
Do these social media schedulers, I mean, do they work? Because I know that with a lot of these, with some social media platforms, they don't like it. You know what I mean? They actually put you down the rankings. What's your take on this?
Yeah, we've noticed that as well. If you're just using third-party tools to schedule, then you will see a decrease in your reach. But I only see that decrease in the reach when people are not going in to do that engagement part. So if they're just being a broadcaster with the third-party tool and not going in the platform at all, then they won't see a lot of engagement. Their reach will decrease. Whereas if they're using the scheduling tool and scheduling time to go into the platform to engage, they won't see a massive effect on using that scheduling tool.
Yeah, very good. Good stuff. I know I'm a big fan on automation. So, and I know that there is lots of great, I suppose, systems and automations that you can use on social media. What is your, I suppose, what, in terms of bots, I know that if you go across, say you're onto a Facebook profile, and you've got like a bot that comes up and says, "Hi, how are you doing? Welcome to my page," type of thing. What is your take on bots and stuff like that? Because I know that it is, it's an interesting subject, and it's great to kind of have someone there or something there if you can't be available. Yeah. But how do you use bots, and do you recommend them?
So it depends on what bots people would use. There's bots from a few years ago that would go and follow people, engage for you, and do all of that type of stuff. And I completely disagree with those types of tools, in today's day, only because now the platforms are sort of like cottoned on to people using them, and that can have a negative effect on your profiles via the platform as well. So just be, careful of those. I would advise against those. But bots, in terms of chat bots, in terms of having a pop-up messenger. So it's like an auto messenger.
Right.
They can be used in some really effective ways. So, you know, you can use them if you're doing challenges, you can get it to message someone every day. If you're, I mean, I love them when we're doing live videos where you can actually get people to type in a keyword below in the comments and it automatically sends them a download, which is great. Although now Facebook have just launched featured link on your lives, which is just amazing. So that's a really great upgrade that they've done. But messenger bots, in terms of popping up at the bottom right, some people can get frustrated if it doesn't answer their question.
Yeah.
And if they've got in the midst of asking a question and it's not answering that question for them, they can become a little bit frustrated. And if there's no one at the other end to then actually clarify the answer or to just answer their question, they will go elsewhere. And so if you've not got someone that's on there, you know, in as a backup, I would definitely question, do your audience or are your audience expecting an instant response? If it's to do with customer service, then I would definitely urge you to make sure that you've got someone in the background that if the robot, the AI isn't able to answer the question, you've got someone there, which is why we see, you know, we're unable to answer your question, we're putting you through to an assistant right now, which I think is a really great way. But if you haven't got that, then I would definitely question whether it's right to use that or not.
Yeah. Good point, that Zoe. Was going to say, and this is a really interesting question from my perspective, because I think it's a bit of an old school question, but you've probably been asked this question many times before. And when people use the word B2C or B2B and things like that, which absolutely drives me insane, by the way, it really pisses me off because I'm not a big believer of the whole kind of B2B, B2C type thing. What's your take on this B2B, B2C thing? Do you think that there's still a market for this, or do you think that it's really kind of down to niche marketing?
When we say B2B, B2C, it's very broad.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very broad subject. I would use it if I was speaking or had a group of people that were a very varied group of different businesses that were targeting different businesses to each other. So I'd use it in that context. But when we're talking about, you know, individuals or more of a niche market, they're all targeting, for example, if I was talking to a group of architects all targeting property developers, then I'd be more specific in what we were doing.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're just targeting businesses and you say that you're B2C and I said to you who your audience and you said businesses, I'd want you to define it more. So I'm quite a bit like you. I do think that you need to be more niched. You do need to know your audience. But I do use it sometimes B2B, B2C, depending on who I'm talking to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100%. Was going to say, we could just talk forever on social media, couldn't we, really?
I know.
so much going on. I was going to say to you is, in terms of what do we need to be kind of mindful, I suppose, you know, because a lot of the listeners are mainly entrepreneurs and SMEs type of thing. Are there any new features that we kind of, you know, need to be kind of more mindful of in terms of, you know, maybe take a big opportunity on or jump on the bandwagon? Because I know that obviously, you know, we're both on Clubhouse and Twitter are kind of moving into that kind of audio only space. LinkedIn are developing something quite snazzy right now on the back end of stuff. So, I mean, is there anything that we kind of need to be kind of aware of in terms of, you mentioned around new features and, you know, about potential benefits and stuff like that, but how could we use the new features? How do you keep up in terms of the new features, and what do you think it's worth using the new features, or do you think it's just kind of worth just staying in your lane type of thing?
You know, always stay in your lane, but explore as to whether that feature is right for you and your strategy, but most importantly, your audience. That's what I always say to people. So, you know, lots of people, when Clubhouse come out, all right, we were really passionate and excited about it, but I always emphasize it's got to be right for your audience and your strategy. If it's not, then don't use it. Don't come out of your lane and don't divert off to somewhere that's taking you away from what you really want to achieve. So I always say to people, please make sure it's right, especially if you're going to use time, spend time and resources on it. But what I will say, if it is right, and the likes of Clubhouse and this audio, so Twitter Spaces are coming in,
Yep.
Facebook are just bringing something in as well. If you feel that is right for your audience, I always say to people, do a bit of a test, have a good month or two just to test it out, see how you get on, see what results you get from it, what traction you get from it for your business, and then make the decision as to whether it's right for you to go ahead. So always have a test and trial period on different types of tools that you think is right. If it's right for your audience and your strategy, have that test and trial to give you the sort of confidence as to whether you want to go forward with it, or it's something you're going to leave and carry on in your lane.
Yep, very good. I suppose last question really. Best tools for engagement, because I think from my perspective, as kind of I call the digital age is here to stay really. My philosophy is that one of the biggest currencies of today which is really underestimated, is trust. And so trust is kind of formed through building relationships, through building conversations, but also through, like you just highlighted, engagement. Any tips on kind of engagement, how to get more engagement going, how to get more relational capital going, how more conversations going? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I love talking about engagement. I could talk about it all day long, and depending on what platform you're using will depend on what you would use. Live stream is great if you like video and audio. Live streaming is great for really getting that engagement with your audience, and the algorithms love live streaming. So if you can do video, use tools like Restream and StreamYard to really help you get that presence out there. So engagement will really help you increase that. The other thing is that Facebook have just launched something called New Page Experience, which is being rolled out to many people over the next few months. And New Page Experience is like your business page having its whole new own news feed, and allows you to go and join groups as your business. You can engage on other pages as your business. That's really going to increase your engagement on a business page level. Yeah. And Instagram, I love the Gary V strategy, the $1.80 strategy that he talks about. Absolutely brilliant, works every single time. But there's a tool called $1.80, and it actually helps you manage that engagement process of that $1.80 strategy that you can put into place. So you can actually tell it, these are the hashtags of where my audience are hanging out. And then you actually put them into the tool, and then you go through the posts there, and you can line up your comments to then drip feed out. And so I really love that tool. It's a great tool. It works on Chrome extension. So do check that out as well. Hope that helps.
Excellent. Fantastic. So first of all, Zoe, I just want to say thanks very much for being on the show today. I think we've covered a lot of great content. I just want to say thanks very much. We could talk for hours on social media, of course, and I'm sure that we're going to have some more opportunities to do so on Clubhouse, aren't we?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Adam. It's always a pleasure to be speaking to you, and I'm honoured to be on the show.
Awesome. So guys, listen, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I know we've covered a lot of content. If you haven't, what I would endorse you guys to do, because we have gone through so much content in that, me and Zoe, what I would endorse you to do, re-listen to this episode, okay? Re-listen to this episode, okay? Get yourself a notebook and pen handy if you didn't already have one in beforehand, and just start making some notes, because Zoe's giving you some great tools in there. She's giving some great strategies in there, and it's just great to be able to, number one, ideas are great, but implementation is even better. So I just want to make sure you do that. And also, if you have any questions as well, please feel free to connect with Zoe on the social media links below, and just mention the Game Changers experience, and then she'll know exactly where you've come from. So without further ado, just want to say thanks very much to you, Zoe, for being on the show today. And to you guys, hope you enjoyed today's show, and we'll see you again on the next Game Changers experience. Take care and have a great day. See you soon. Hey, you guys, I just want to say thank you so much for listening in to this episode of the Game Changers experience. I hope that you got some amazing value, some great insights, and golden nuggets that you can implement into your business straight away. I would really, really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review on the button below. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.